on YouTube. On YouTube. Sorry.
Sherry, there's a rather large bear staring at me. Makes me very nervous.
I thought it was just a hat.
He's protecting me.
Okay. I'm just looking. There's Polly. We have Carol, Sherry, Ralph. So we still need Bob and Chris. Although we do have a quorum. We'll give them another minute.
I like the bear poster, Sherry.
Thanks. That's a photo from Alaska that I took several years ago.
Wow. Nice. You were close to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had a long lens.
Oh, I think I would have
Hope you
been
had
in
some-
the direction.
I hope you had some bear spray.
It was a bear watching photo tour. So there was a bunch of us.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
We can't have a dog. So we,
So you adopted a bear, huh? Okay. I think that's Bob Nadelberg who just.
That
came
is
over
me.
here
How are you?
With your gyroscopic, very cool phone.
Yeah, I'm having technical problems with my laptop, so you were on my gyrocosmic cell phone here.
I've texted Chris. I haven't heard from her. We'll give it another minute, and then we'll start.
Phil, I'm going to try and log in with my laptop, so you'll see another thing from me.
Well, don't disappear until you actually get sworn in.
I promise. I will be here with my my helmet hair as well from skiing today.
There's Chris. Okay. I believe that the council and the key staff members are available. So let me kick this off. Good evening, everyone. This is the Hideout Utah Town Council regular meeting and public hearing of January 13th, 2022. I'm going to call the meeting to order and remind everyone that there is no anchor site per both the letter of January 8th, as well as just our own well-publicized awareness that the Omicron virus is taking over Summit County. I think we're something like the 4th worst in the entire country. 4th or 14th, either way, it's not a good number. So we will not do this in person. Roll call. Ralph Severini,
Here.
Bob Nadelberg,
Here.
Carol Hazelton.
Here.
Thank you. Chris Byer,
Here.
Sherry Jacobs.
here.
Thank you. Council is here. The first order of business is to be all of us to be sworn in into, as we were all reelected either through election or through the fact that some ran unopposed. But we all do need to be legally sworn in, although we're officially we are in. We just haven't gone through the swearing in process. So, Alicia, I don't know. We're going to do this individually, or do you do this en masse, or how does this work?
You should do it individually.
Individually?
Individually?
Yeah, for the ones that were subject to the election, which,
Was everybody except for Sherry.
okay, so everybody except for Sherry.
And
Yep.
and yeah, and well, if they ran unopposed, do they need to be individually as well?
Yes, but it's fast. It's like 2 sentences, but you have to.
Yep.
I guess you could say your own.
So everybody has to turn their video on for this as well, so that we can capture when you raise your hand and swear. All right, Alicia, let's get started.
All right, Mayor, I'm going to do yours first. If you'll raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Phil Rubin,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, should we go in alphabetical order and let's get Chris next? All right. I state your name.
I, Chris Byer,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, and then Carol, I think you're next. I state your name.
I, Carol Hazelton,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of this office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think next is Bob. All right, raise your right hand, please.
See it?
Yep.
It's buried in lava.
I state your name.
Robert Nadelberg,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Perfect. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, and then Ralph,
Here I am.
here you are. I state your name.
I, Ralph Severini,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will, and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Great. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Alicia, and thank all of the council members for continuing to serve the community as you do. we are far better community with your support and participation in the government. So I thank you for agreeing to be here and support the team. We have a lot of minutes that have to be approved, and that's going to take some time. And we've got some people that are here for a limited period of time, particularly we got Troy Morgan from the fire district to talk about the Wildland Urban Interface Code. And so I would like to allow that to happen first, and we'll save the minutes to the end because otherwise people are sitting here waiting for us to go through 6 sets of minutes. Not that they're not great minutes, it's just that it'll allow us to get on with the business activities and then come back to the minutes, which are a little less controversial. If that's okay. So I'm going to jump down and open the floor to talk about, open the discussion of the possible adoption of the Wildland and Urban Interface Code and its Appendix C. And I know Polly has some thoughts on that, and Tim has some thoughts on that, as well as Troy. We've seen it before. We saw it at the prior meeting. I think there are some areas in it that we would need to tweak personally, but I'm going to listen to the input from staff, and then we'll talk about it. So I don't know, Paul, you going to go first, or Tim, or who's going first?
I think even having Troy from the fire district explain a little bit about the Wildland Urban Interface Code and its importance for fire safety is probably the best way to start. I can kick it off in just saying that the 2006 version is the one that is authorized by the state. It's the only one that there is a 2020 or 2022 version, I think, or 2021, but it's not authorized to adopt by the state, even though it might be a better code. And it is under the building codes section of our code because it is related to building materials, defensible space, and that type of thing. And I can let Troy take it from there.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate you having us on this evening. Myself and our Deputy Chief Eric Kells and Assistant Deputy Chief Jason Provost are on the call as well. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor and council members, for being reelected. That's awesome. Appreciate the support. As far as the Urban Interface Code, it really helps us help the homeowners and the community as far as wildfire protection. A big concern for us is definitely homes and structures that are in the urban interface, and how do we protect those structures and the population that is living in those areas when we do have an advancing wildfire approaching. So this code, although all codes, there is some issues with every code. This code gives us a good starting point on vegetation removal and thinning of the vegetation, and it gives us an opportunity as a fire district to safely put firefighters in an area to protect structures and life safety, because we really don't want to put firefighters in danger trying to protect a home where they're going to get hurt, as well as homes that are unsavable in some instances. So that's really our big push as far as the code. It does give us that opportunity to work with different communities and developers and individual homeowners on best practices to protect your home in life safety issues. But I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope you guys have had a chance to look over it. We can entertain any questions and answer any questions that you may have.
Troy, I'll kick it off. This is Phil, the mayor. Sorry, I was just trying to get a quick bite of dinner there.
Oh, no, you're good.
So in principle, I think I'm aligned with you. I think Hideout has a couple of things that we need to get clarity on. One is, does it apply? Is it retroactive or going forward? Because there's a lot of structures here that probably don't meet the code as it's described in there, and so we need to address that. Another issue I have is that in some of our lots, I'm not sure we've actually got the space between the building envelope and the lot line to meet the clear space definitions in the code. And so, if some, in some cases, at least some of the older lots, there's 10 feet from the building envelope to the lot line. And probably some corners and stuff that are even less. So I'm sure that'll get some resistance from homeowners who want to have some sort of landscape. And if they're only 10 feet from the edge, that kind of makes it hard for them to have landscape if they can't put anything in that space. So I don't know how we address that.
So you are correct. There is that part in the code that states there should be no tree crowns within 10 feet of any structure. As far as retroactive, that would have to be a separate ordinance. When you adopt a code, that code, unless there's another ordinance, as far as I understand, you cannot go back and have people, sorry, the words I'm looking for, you can't go back retroactive. It would just be building permits coming in from the day you adopt this forward.
Thank you. So Tim and I guess Ryan's not on, I don't think, Tim. So to the best of my knowledge, or Polly, I think that's probably the area in there that, again, we want to do everything we can to support the ability of you guys to come in and help us in case of a wildfire. And we've all seen the horrendous damage that and to both property and life that wildfire can do. I just want to make sure that if we have to adjust the code, I know it's the standard, Polly, but I mean, if there's stuff in there that we can't functionally do because of the lot sizes and what people have been committed to, even if they haven't built yet, I think we have to put some language in that excuses that somehow, or we're basically putting in a code that we can't enforce. That's my concern.
I have another concern as well. I'm actually going through the process of the design right now. And there are a lot of things in the design review guidelines that might contradict things in this code. And I understand obviously that the code will be, because it's health and safety, would probably be the most important. And obviously I want my home to be protected, but it's already very difficult to muddle through that. And then if you're not approved based on the guidelines, but you're following the code, it might just make it very difficult for homeowners. So we need to figure out a way to make that work as well.
Really good point, Sherry. I'm sure that the design review and HOA stuff doesn't necessarily meet the wildland urban interface language at all, because they require us to put trees and stuff.
Right. We do have this issue in some other HOAs that their CCNRs contradict the code, but the code does trump any CCNRs because it's the more restrictive and it is the state code.
So Troy, what municipalities have adopted this? You don't have to list them all, but can you give us a few that have adopted this so far?
So Wasatch County has adopted the code. I think they adopted it in 2009. And Heber City adopted this code in 2019.
I also know Salt Lake County has adopted it. Town of Brighton has adopted it. Sandy City has adopted it. So it's a hodgepodge. Park City has adopted it.
That's helpful, Polly, because basically, our neighboring communities have all adopted it and it's working. So it's not like we're breaking new ground by looking at this. I guess I'm back to your opinion, Polly, on not so much, I guess, confirming what Troy suggested about the code trumping the HOA. We obviously would have to communicate with them and all the other HOAs as well, not just the master HOA for a good portion of Hideout, but there's several other separate ones as well. And B, what do we do about the lot line conflicts, the 10 feet versus we're basically saying anybody who has a lot and only has a 10-foot can't have any shrubbery or anything of any kind? Are we gonna, I think, I don't know how to address that. I really don't.
Well,
What's your
maybe
thoughts
Troy
on that?
talk to the more specifics. I don't think it's, I mean, I know that it's supposed to not have ground covering, but you can have trees. And there are certain plants, I think, that are more fire resistant. Can you, because I don't think that the WUI is trying to make it just, pavement or just dead space. It's more adaptable than that. Maybe Troy.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, the purpose of the code is not to clear cut, and I mean, we don't want to live in a concrete jungle. There's a reason we live in the mountains, right? I mean, they're very beautiful. It's just a mixture of things. So there is that tree crown portion of the code. And the reason for that is when you think of wildfires, we like to keep fire on the ground. So there's portions in the code that's called defensible space. And in that defensible space, the requirements are, for the most part, in the town of Hideout, I don't see it being anywhere bigger than 30 feet. That's a moderate hazard form, the severity form. And that's a requirement of 30 feet of defensible space. That doesn't necessarily mean we want you to clear cut 30 feet on your property. That just means within that 30 feet, we want all deadened down material cleaned up on the ground and trees limbed up, 4 to 6 feet. Because when we're talking about wildfires, if we can keep them on the ground fairly small, they're easier to put out. It's when they run up a tree and get into the tree crowns, that's when we have problems. And if you have a tree that's right next to the structure, once you get fire into the eaves or an attic of a home, it's very difficult to put that structure fire out. So you can have trees, and there are some fire-wise shrubs. Utah State put out a book a few years ago that had some fire-wise plants, things you can do vegetation-wise. So yeah, you can have the vegetation. The code just states you don't want them 10 feet within the structure, 10 feet towards the structure.
Isn't there something too, like I thought aspen trees, I've been told, are not as dangerous, and it's okay to have them closer to your house?
So yes, aspen trees are more fire resilient. They hold more moisture than a conifer tree. The problem is the code does not specify, when it's talking tree crowns, it doesn't state aspens or conifers. It's just tree crowns within 10 feet of the structure. That's when we talk about no code's perfect. That's probably the biggest issue with this code, to be perfectly honest with you.
And would you be comfortable if we amended it to allow for aspens, or does that worry you from a fire standpoint?
As a firefighter, I've seen every type of vegetation burn. If something's hot enough and a big enough fire, it will burn. So to say that aspens are okay, I would recommend no. But again, we're here to support you with what you guys want to do.
I think the point is there is no perfect structure. We just saw what happened in Colorado.
Right.
And I mean, concrete buildings, and I mean, if fire penetrates, as you mentioned, it gets, those things burn from the inside, not from the outside as
Right.
much. I mean, the concrete building is great, but it's not super so sealed tight that ash and coal sparks can't get in there and then start something inside on fire, and then it goes. So I mean, there's nothing perfect. I think the intent is great. I think if we're willing to, exercise some judgment with the code, then maybe we can consider it as written. I think that you point out the key point, the tree crowns. So if you've got aspens by your house, you may want to think about keeping them from getting so high that that they're up against the eaves, because it's that's how fires, as you say, run up the tree and jump. If we've got if we've got space between the trees, it makes it easier for firefighters to be able to get to the structure versus a piece of forest like out in the Uintas somewhere, where you have to get small and crawl through to get through places. So I think we have to think about what we would be advising the landscape professionals to think about as part of the process for future building things, so that we can have a code that's reasonably achievable and not something that basically scares everyone off. And the fact that it's being used in Wasatch and Heber and Park City, and even in places what I think you said Brighton, Polly,
Yeah.
which is more wildland or urban interface than we are. It's got a lot more trees. They can figure it out. I guess we can too.
I will say, Mr. Mayor, you're not the only community with this issue. We have a lot in the county, like the Jordanelle Retreat. There's subdivision over on Highway 32, where the structures are fairly close to each other. And from what I've noticed, they just don't plant trees between the two houses. And yeah, I mean, as a homeowner, you probably want that privacy between your neighbor's window and stuff. But you brought up a good point with that Marshall fire in Colorado in December. If you look at the video of all those homes that were burnt down, it was going from home to home to home, and the vegetation was still standing there. So the proximity of the houses were 90% of the problem why those structures burnt down.
Hey, this is Chris. I'd like to just give you my opinion about the trees. I don't think we should have a lot of trees out here in Hideout. I mean, we're all about the view. The more trees you put up, eventually there goes the view. I can tell you, I lived in Jeremy Ranch 18 years ago, and when we got our house, when we moved in there, we had a perfectly unobstructed view. There were no trees, right? But then they all grew over the last 15, 18 years, and there's no view anymore. So I'm pretty sure that trees here are not going to be an issue in Hideout, just because of the nature of what we're all trying to get, which is, that mountain, that lake view. And that's, I don't see the trees and the crown and the tree crowns. I don't see that to be really being an issue here.
I have a question for you, Troy. You had mentioned in the Colorado wildfire, those houses, what were they, about 10 feet apart? They were crammed in there pretty tight, right?
Yeah. So I received a video a couple of weeks ago. It was the morning after. It was a drone footage video, and for the most part, the foundations looked like they were within 10 feet of each other. And the structures that were still standing were typically ones at the end of a cul-de-sac where they had a little more separation between the homes.
Can you give us just a rough idea, given the type of vegetation, terrain, and to say nothing of our very, very strong wind flow patterns here, how ideally, how far apart should future structures be given to mitigate any type of a wildfire similar to what we recently saw in Colorado? Like 30 feet, 40, 50 feet? 10 feet, that seems to violate common sense. And obviously we saw the disastrous results of that. Can you give us a rough number?
I don't know right off the top of my head what the perfect number is, but the more separation you give, the better. And then you factor in what type of siding is on those structures. Is it vinyl? Is it wood? Is it hardy? Me personally, I would like 20 feet between my neighbors at least. But it's all, fire dependent. You get something like you say with strong winds coming off that lake, that Marshall fire, they predicted 100-mile-an-hour winds, and there's really nothing that you're going to be able to do with that, kind of just step back and wait for it to do its thing. But in a normal situation, I would say at least 20 feet.
Yeah,
So-
at least. And if I could just circle back to our town attorney, Polly, if we as a town council were to pass some legislation giving minimum separation between structures, how would that interact with the MDA already in place? There's certain areas that haven't been platted out yet. And I think in the interest of public safety, that we should have the structures set as far apart as possible.
I don't know that, I don't think, if things are already platted, then they're basically grandfathered in. There are already, there are building code requirements, of course. But I don't know how close things are required. I think it's also that you might have to change the materials, right? If you have two homes that are, the setbacks are only 5 feet on either side, then you would change the materials that have to be built if, going forward to make them more resistant. Maybe you'd also require sprinklers. And the checklist at the end, that kind of worksheet, which is Appendix C, takes all that into account so that if you have more fire danger, you have to make sure that you're hardening your home so that it is less susceptible to catching on fire. But I don't think, this is a health safety issue, so I guess we would just address it. I don't know of particular conflicts of this code and the MDA, but I think we would work around it and make sure that we're putting health and safety first.
So
Yeah,
the
NDA,
and I
developed
think-
land. The GCD and the other developers like Mustang, they all have, if I'm not mistaken, they own land here or have right to develop land here, but it hasn't been platted yet. So I think as a council, we're going to need to consider fire safety into any future development proposals that come before us.
A quick comment here that we had, so the MDA, and I think our original zoning, let's call it zoning 1, was 10 feet side setback, so that you had the 2 side setbacks, you get 20 feet. So to Troy's point, I think that would give us 20 in existing, but there's a lot of building going up based upon, those zoning codes. Our new codes, and certainly which I fought for was extending the side setbacks, and we now have 20 feet, so that would be 40 feet. So that would certainly be beyond the defense, better than defensible, but that's only for new, for new construction that's not wedded to, or that was previously platted. So I think we're fairly well covered on the new stuff. It's really the old, any of the old plats, any of the developments that are going to go up or phases that go up with that, with those approvals. So I think, and we did the 20-foot side setback for view, but it certainly works to improve, keep the view shed, to Chris's point. So I think, we're covered on that. We kind of did a good thing, and we got a benefit out of it if we move on this. But my only other point is, I don't feel like we've communicated this to the, to get some other input to the HOAs. So while I'm totally in favor and principle of this, I'd sure like to have one more session so we could communicate properly to potentially other interested parties. Kind of like Sherry is sitting in her situation, not only individuals, but some of the HOAs.
I had another question as well. I was just reading through this, and I know a couple of residents had the questions as well about things like your barbecues and outdoor fire pits. It says it has to be a minimum of 30 feet from combustible material, and we all have to have wood siding. So does that mean now that we're not going to allow people to have a gas grill or a gas fire pit anymore?
That's a great question as well, Sherry. I mean, obviously that's not going to serve the community very well if they can't have a grill on their patio or deck. I think Troy then gets to materials, as he talks about, it gets to materials of construction. My patio is done in stucco, so it, less likely to be catch quickly on fire from my grill, but not everybody does. So those are the kinds of things that would have to be considered with this.
So I can answer some of that. As far as barbecues, we do not regulate barbecues. This code has nothing to do with barbecues on your deck. Fire pits, backyard fire rings. The only time we regulate anything like that is when we are in stage 1 fire restrictions. For the most part, we just recommend, it's a recommendation that if you were to have a fire pit in your backyard and it's wood and not gas, we just recommend that you have clear vegetation, like irrigated grass or down to mineral soil so many feet. You don't have it right next to a structure or underneath a tree. But we do not regulate.
Okay.
We don't allow solid fuel outdoors anyway.
Okay, so we don't regulate anything like that. As far as natural gas fire pits, you're even allowed to have them during fire restrictions.
I was reading page 19. Oh, sorry. I was just reading page 19's A104.7, and it looked like that was, maybe I just read it wrong.
No, well, the thing is that if you look up, that is absolute, it is in Appendix A, and it does talk about outdoor fireplaces, permanent barbecues. I don't know if those are ones that, if there's a distinction of maybe that's one that's somehow a structure, I don't know. But in any case, if you look up in Appendix A, it says the provisions contained in this appendix are optional.
Okay, I must have missed that while reading this.
So
Thank
if you look
for
at page
clarifying.
17, you can see that.
Okay, thank you. I must have missed that
No,
part.
it's, it's nuanced, and we can understand the concern, but this gives more flexibility when it comes to Appendix A.
So I think, Ralph's comment is valid, and especially in the fact that this is, as you say, Polly, it is a nuanced document. We're going to have to do some work in communication to the community that suggests that that why we're doing this, why we think it's important, what are the key takeaways, and how is it likely to affect future building folks. And like it does say that it has a list of requirements that if you don't read the little small print at the top of the page here, you say, well, nobody can do this. but it turns out you can. So, we need to be aligned around how we're going to take this out once we take it out, if we take it out. So, I mean, we can do, maybe we would do a general communication session of some sort for the community on this, that we would do a public information meeting. Maybe and then we could get Troy or one of the folks from the fire district team to, be available for that time slot, and, walk people through it and talk about it and make sure everybody understands, what it is and what it isn't. It's not intended to make it impossible to live here. It is intended to help should there ever be a time where we need the help of the fire service. And get that, so we can get that message out with that before we, and get feedback, give folks a chance to noodle on that before we close the door. And I think you're right, Ralph, we also need to share it with the HOAs.
And not just wait for them to come to us. I think it's our obligation.
For sure.
Yeah, to reach out. And also, I think it'd probably be worthwhile in summarizing, this, it's easy just to dump this on someone, but Troy, maybe you can come up with your, top 10 bullets, why this is important, and some of all the things you kind of mentioned tonight. And maybe we summarize that and then include the full, the full appendix here.
Right, for sure.
I think this is a great idea, socializing this with a broader audience. And I think we might have a little time, right? There's snow on the ground right now, but I'm definitely in favor of this. I'm gonna just throw that out there right now. And I think that we need to not allow this to drag on too long. Make sure that if we are, we leave here with an intent to, get this communicated out to a broader audience, we should make sure that regardless of their participation, because you know how people are, right? They're not always receptive or interested even in participating, but we should, get on this before all the snow is gone.
Well, I would agree with that. My big concern, and I know Clint shares the same concern, is the new subdivisions going in across 248. What we don't want to see happen is a bunch of building permits go through where the code has not been adopted, and then all of a sudden the code is adopted, because then you run into the problem, well, how come my neighbor can have all these trees and I can't? And I mean, that causes issue, and it's, in its own right, but we're happy to support you guys with whatever you want to do. I'd be happy to come back to another meeting and meet with anybody. I can come in person, we can do it via Zoom, whatever works for you.
I think just given the coronavirus situation, we won't be doing it in person, but it's not, don't want to put you guys at risk and have you out for coronavirus when I need you on a truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point. I mean, the longer we wait, the more opportunities miss.
I agree.
So I'm okay if we try to, get the word out and get organized with an information session or however we want to do this. But then let's get it back on our agenda.
Yeah, I think, Krista, what we should do is put a time limit out there. We'll make it happen. We'll put on an information package as quickly as possible. We'll say you got 2 weeks to review this. There's going to be a PI session on, February, whatever. And if we get, and we'll answer questions, via Zoom on that one. And it'll be on the February 10th or whatever date in February, our 10th, our council meeting is. We're going to be voting on it. And that's as long as we're going to let it go.
Okay, I can support that.
And if you miss it, you miss it. But at least we tried.
I think
we
if we
do it.
have a meeting as well, we we should certainly know what, if there are questions come up and I live across the, somebody says, I live across the highway, like Troy was just saying, we should know what development that is and whether it's grandfathered or not. So we've got some clarity around some things. So we kind of go in armed in that meetings, as well educated as we possibly can.
Well, pretty much everything is grandfathered,
I know.
Ralph. I mean, in that respect,
That's an issue,
no.
yes.
But it doesn't mean we can't help people to understand. But again, we do have minimum 10 feet on property lines, so that gives 20. So it does give some defendable space. We can work with the HOAs around their demands on landscape and thinking about that. And the biggest thing I think is we need to build this into our building. When people come in for individual home builds, that we provide this information to them as well as part of that process of being a new home, building a new home on your land in Hideout. The developers we can get we get as part of, because they have to come in for approvals through the planning commission and the council, so we can address those guys earlier in the process. The individual homeowners don't go through that process, so I think we have to add that to our communication package on an individual homeowner build.
I have a question regarding the landscaping. Is it possible to look at the landscape list of the allowed plants and trees and make a list of which ones are actually more fire resistant than others so that people can choose those moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's all relative, Sherry, as Troy mentioned, everything burns. I mean, everything.
Right.
So.
And I don't
think it's
believe
more
there's
about-
sorry, Mr. Mayor. I don't believe there's an allowed or unallowed. It's just more mitigating what's on the property.
Okay.
But like I said, there is material out there that specifies different fire whites, planting, shrubs.
That's what I meant. I guess we have a list that's allowed here in Hideout of what we're allowed to actually plant.
Okay.
And just wondering if some of those plants should not be used at all if they're, really fire hazard.
Well, unfortunately, you guys live in the oak brush, and that's probably one of the worst fire hazards that we have in Wasatch County. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I think again, it's the mitigation is height of the shrubs, space between things, those kinds of things more than, I think are the things that we can talk about more than we can say, use this tree or use this shrub versus this shrub. I mean, we have the June grass, and that stuff grows wild all over the hillsides. And by July 2nd, it's all turned brown and ready to burn. Just the nature of that plant. So I think we can take, I don't know, Sherry, I mean, it's a good thought, but I don't know that I think the biggest things that we can get our residents to do is be thinking about this. There's lots of data out there. If they want to see what a wildfire looks like, go on YouTube and hit wildfire, and you'll learn in a hurry what it looks like and what it can do. And then with that in mind, think about your landscape plan in a way that gives the fire department a chance to get to your structure from all sides, depending on which direction the fire is coming from. And I think that's really the message here is think about how your fire district can help protect your property should there be a need. And I think that's really the message. And I think that's the one we want to get out to everybody. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. We're not, we're not suggesting that you live in a concrete jungle, as Troy says. We're not looking for pavement for 15 feet around the house. We're not looking for gravel instead of mulch necessarily. What we are looking for is a way to get there. And if there's a wall of fire between the access that the fire department has and your house, they're not going to be able to get there. And that's the part you need to think about is how do you get through that wall of fire? What kind of fire breaks can you have? What kind of spacing can you have? I really think that's, the more I hear us talk about it, I think that's really the message we got to get out.
No, it makes sense.
Can we get Troy, maybe this is a question for you, Troy. Have you looked at the various sections of the town as we are now, kind of like a fire audit, so to speak? Are there areas that are, that are really prevalent problems, so to speak? And I mean, maybe we can call those out in a meeting. At least we should know about it as well. Kind of like like a fire audit, so to speak. We're kind of thinking the same things around, our dark sky to get some kind of understanding of where we are currently. Do we have anything like that, or is that something you would do, Troy?
Ralph, it's on the screen. I mean, I think they've got it pretty well nailed right here. Which
Is that the output of? Okay, so
that is the form on the Wildland Urban Interface that you use to determine just how challenged you are with the scores down here.
Right. But we haven't done
so
this
you
yet,
can,
right?
No, but I'm saying the tool exists that we could basically we know what our slopes are, we know where our roads are, we know which ones have one road in, one road out, in that kind of thing. And so, I mean, I think we could pretty quickly do a quick roll of the subdivisions. Soaring Hawk being a one road subdivision puts it at a much higher risk, right?
Yeah, this is exactly what I was getting at. Yeah, so if we could
And
do
the grades, we know what the grade and some of the grades. I mean, we got roads in Soaring Hawk with more than 10% grade. So those kinds of things
can we do this
use
before
this
the next meeting?
with our
or something
engineering
like that?
team.
Yeah.
We could probably sit down with our engineering team and in a meeting with myself and Tim and Ryan and give you a sense of how awful we are. My guess is we're going to be somewhere above 75. I don't know if we're going to be above 100.
I would be surprised if you were in that extreme category, but there are some areas, to be quite honest with you, in the older part of the town where the roads are very narrow, streets dead end.
Rustler. Yeah.
That's a major concern for us, for sure.
Yeah. So I think we can do that, Ralph, just to add, without using a poorly used term, fuel to the fire. We could do that on some of the subdivisions and make sure people understand the risk in their particular area. And Rustler being one, I think that's a high concern area because there are roads that are one lane in, if you will, one lane out. I mean, they're passable, but they're barely 2-lane roads. But there is only, I think we could probably give them those single lane non-through roads in Rustler a pretty high number, which is not going to help them. The widths are in some cases less than 20 feet, et cetera, et cetera. So we can probably do that with Ryan and Tim and I and do a quick look at that to help with the communication process on why we're doing this. It's not going to help Rustler, but it might help us.
I would be happy to help with that as well if you need.
All right, well, we'll get something on the books for, on the calendar for next week, and we'll take a cut at this as well as a communication. And, and Alicia, if you'd make a note to put this back on the agenda for the February 10th meeting, and we'll get some stuff done in the meantime.
Hey, before we wrap this up, I have a question for Polly. So I'm looking at section 602, automatic sprinkler systems. And how do we reconcile what's in here, which, says automatic sprinkler system shall be installed, with the fact that we had to repeal, to get rid of our town law requiring sprinkler systems because the state legislature had prevented us from doing that? How do we reconcile that?
That's a great question, Chris. Troy, that's firmly in your plate, I think.
So that would be a great question if Clint was here, but I do believe the legislature has kind of taken that out. Like you said, I believe the only requirements are if it reaches a certain square footage is where you can require the sprinklers, but that is definitely more in Clint's wheelhouse, and I would have to double check with him. Maybe our deputy chief, Mr. Hells, he may know if he'd like to chime in.
What type of buildings are required to meet class 1 ignition resistant construction? Is that? Because I do know that there are places where sprinklers are required still.
Yeah, above 10,000 square feet, multi-unit, like condo type unit type buildings, stuff like that.
Well, and I also know that some places, up in, for example, in Brighton, they almost all require sprinklers up there. Maybe it's how it works out with that worksheet. In order to compensate for some of the other issues, they're required to have sprinklers. And that's for homes that are less than 10,000 feet. I can look into it further since we're going to be continuing.
We'd love to know that, Polly, because every time I've approached Clint on how do I get the opportunity to overrule the state legislature, he kind of says maybe with the Wildland Urban Interface Code, but it'd be great to know how Brighton's doing it and we're not, because I think this council would be highly supportive of requiring fire suppression systems in buildings that people occupy. I know I have one and I wouldn't build, even though it's not required, I wouldn't build another home without it.
Yeah, and I know we
But I
had
don't
this
think-
discussion when, I'm sorry, Ralph.
I was just going to
Go ahead,
say,
Chris.
okay, Chris. Yeah.
All right, I know we had this discussion before Shoreline Phase 1 got built, and if I recall.
Yeah.
Carol, you'll know, you don't have fire sprinklers, automatic sprinkler systems in your construction,
That's correct.
right?
That was essentially the same comment I was going to make, Chris. Yeah, I don't think anything in Shoreline has sprinklers.
Right, but all the older stuff does.
It was built after the code was changed,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But if there's a way we can find tools to drive it back to the stuff in the future gets built with it, I'm all for it. I'm sure the homeowners may not do because it adds a fair bit of cost, but in the big picture, it's the right thing to do. So Troy, would you take that, since I didn't hear from your assistant chief, even though he's on, please take that back to Clint and see if he can help guide us, especially if we think that Brighton can and we can't. I'm curious how that happens.
I will for sure. But
This is Eric Hales. Yeah, I've been listening, and it's something we will take back to Clint, and we will work with the building department. And we know that Park City Municipal actually is very adamant to have fire sprinklers in all their structures. So it's something we can work with through the code, but we will work with Clint on that.
Thank you,
That'd be
Chief.
great. All right, anything else from council on the Wildland Urban Interface? Okay, well, thank you from the fire district for being here tonight and helping us with questions. Thanks, council, for all your great suggestions. We recognize it as a short timeline. We want to get this done. I'll get together with the engineering staff and we'll get some communications out, and we'll reach out to through you, Troy, or Clint, to find a time early February that we can do a public information session on this.
That sounds great. And again, thank you guys very much. We appreciate the support and your consideration in this matter. And we're happy to help with whatever you need.
Thank you. Okay. I'm really messing up the agenda tonight, but we're gonna jump back up and do the public hearing item next, which is review and possible approval regarding an amendment to the master development agreement for the Deer Springs community. Thomas, are you on the phone?
I know he's been having some connectivity trouble. He was texting me earlier and he had lost connection. So I'm pretty familiar with this and can go ahead, and if he jumps on, I'm happy to hand it over to him. But basically, we agreed, I think back in March of 2021, that the MDA would need to be updated. A large part of it had to do with the phasing plan. And I don't know if Dylan is on or Ryan. I don't think Ryan was on, but I relied on them to look at the phasing, but they were okay with the phasing. I think that's one of the big things. The other thing was that there was still $540,000 that was owed to the town. We, I think, had kind of a handshake deal. Originally, it was supposed to be paid within 60 days of the first MDA being signed. And now 60,000 of it was paid. So now there's still 540,000 due. And we thought from a staff perspective that it would be better to just have a hard date that we could know when to expect the money, as opposed to having it tied to phasing. So we were suggesting February 15th. This was brought up at the Planning Commission, and the developer at that meeting suggested that that was okay. He agreed to it. And I think those were the big changes. It stayed, the timing of the parks was the other big issue, and that stayed being tied to once, I think we're phase 3. I'm sorry, I haven't looked at this for a little while. So that's kind of
here. So here's,
yeah.
Here it is.
And so this would allow it to move forward, and also the phasing plan would match what the developer wanted to do.
Okay. Any questions from council?
Polly, does the ordinance specify the timing of the park or of the payment date?
So, okay, and here I have my notes. So there was an MDA that was first signed, and then in May 28th, 2020, the First Amendment was signed. And in that, it updated the phasing plan. It stated that parks to be completed prior to phase 3 of the final plat recordation. It also required some screening and landscaping for phase 1 and 3 townhomes. It allowed for hardy board and also say it would build the driveway for the maintenance building. Now this one, the proposed Second Amendment, updates the phasing plan. So right now the parks are to be completed prior to phase 3 final plat recordation. And you can look at the phasing plan, which I think is an attachment as to when that would be, or where that phase is. And then it updates the timing of the payment. So those are the two main things that we're doing here, is just the phasing plan and the payment timing. And you can see here, you can see phase 3, which is different than it was before. And I think there was something to do with the parks. Well, I think one of the parks is part of phase 3. So that was part of why they were asking for that.
Right, because putting in it, we talked about putting it in early would just get torn up when they went to do phase 3. So we agreed to let it come in phase 3.
And I believe I see Mark Garza, and I also thought I saw Nate Brockbank on the call. I don't see Nate anymore. But.
Yes, Mark Garza is here. Nate had to jump off. I apologize, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. I think Paulie did a great job. I was at the Planning Commission, so I was the one who approved the February date on the remaining funds that are owed. We had originally hoped to push it out a little bit further, but in the agreement, either way, it says when we're ready to record, those funds need to be paid for phase 2, and we're ready to record. So we're comfortable with the dates that's in the agreement that staff has recommended. We're fine with that. We actually think we may be paying you guys earlier than that, again, because we're ready to record some plat. So we're comfortable with the agreement. We appreciate all the staff's help and be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you, Mark. Anything else from council?
No, since Mark
Before I open it
explained, he agreed to the payment in February, I'm good.
And again, Chris, the park, we did move the park into phase 3 in a prior amendment, and it hasn't changed in this round.
Yeah, I do remember that. And the park general configuration hasn't changed either.
No.
Okay.
Mark Garza, again, if I could just mention one more thing, as the mayor mentioned, phase 3, the parks are in there. Our phase 3 has already been submitted to staff for their review. So we intend to get that one going rather quickly as well. So just so everybody's reference.
Build it while it's hot.
Anything else from council? This is a public hearing, so I'll open the floor for public input. The way this works in a Zoom call is that there's a feature in the Zoom screen where you're allowed to raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment. So I've got the list of participants up. If you're on the phone only and you want to make a comment, it is, I believe, *6. Is that correct, Alicia?
Yeah, sorry, *6 to raise your hand, and then I'll unmute you, and then you can speak.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see any hands that have come up. So I will close close public input and go back to the ordinance.
And it's actually not an ordinance, it's just,
That's right. It's an amendment to the MDA. You're right. Thank you, Polly.
so the motion should be to authorize the mayor to execute the second amendment to the master development agreement for Deer Springs community.
Thank you. So I'm looking for a motion to authorize the mayor, that would be me, to sign and implement the second amendment to the master development agreement for the Deer Springs community.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Chris, was that the move? Did you do the move there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was me.
There was a motion. Okay. Bob, you have a second. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to poll council. Ralph?
Yes.
Thank you. Carol Hazelton?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Motion carries. The second amendment will be recorded as discussed this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll need signatures from Nate and Holmes and whoever the right ones are. But Alicia will take care of that and get in touch with you.
Perfect. Thanks again. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. So I'm going to jump to item 6 here, which is poly platform, just because we've got Kamel on the meeting, and he's the developer for this particular platform. I don't want to have him sit around for another 2 hours while we do everything else. So I'm going to jump to this. So we sent the package. Let's see. Some of us were on a call with Kamel and the Kamel Green and the Poly Platform folks to learn about this program. Carol Hazelton was on the call. I was on the call. Alicia was on the call. Tim was on the call. If you remember, we attempted to put in place a couple years ago a tool for emergency notification and so forth. The result of that was a dismal failure and a loss to the town of several $1,000s, because the platform that we engaged with turned out to not be able to do what it said it could do. It was not able to manage the GIS implications of us having a Summit County postal code and a Wasatch County physical location. Even though we did a GIS map for them and provided all that, they could not perform. So this platform is, the technology has moved since then. This platform is a subscription platform. The residents would have to sign up for it to work. Okay, there's no way to push stuff to residents if they don't want the information. But it's quite clever. It has a lot of flexibility about what you can sign up for. You can sign up for just emergency notification. You can sign up for, you can provide several levels of access. So you can have, urgent stuff. You can have meeting information. You can have social activities, notifications like those yoga on Monday nights in the town hall or whatever, those kinds of things. And you can list or choose between which ones you want to get notified on. We'll have our own login screen. As part of the app, you go to the App Store and get it. It's both Android and iPhone manageable. The city has a view, the user has a view. You can have things pop up. You could just have the meeting schedules, the city council schedules, and then you can have, as I said, all kinds of things to do that. It interfaces with Express Bill Pay. So again, you can have a single platform. We're looking at whether or not we can tie through here into the building permit system as well, if we were to go ahead. It's quite reasonable in cost. I'm not allowing Kamel to believe that this is cheap, but I think it's quite reasonable in cost and service. It's being used by a number of constituencies around Utah. I'll let Kamel talk in just a minute and give you his background. It also has surveying and polls functionality, which is kind of neat. So we can, you can say, what did you think of tonight's council meeting, or what did you think of this communication session? This would essentially allow us to replace our SurveyMonkey subscription without having to spend extra cost. It would allow individual council members to put a poll together, for example. So it's kind of a cool little package. Additionally, these guys have do analytics for you with the poll, and they have a team that can help you put questions together that'll get you to better understand the data. So this slide, which you may say, this is not what we'd be paying. This is what you would be paying for these various alternative solutions. Kamel, if you want to do a little background on the development of this and some of the other communities that have adopted it, that'd be great.
Yeah, and thank you for that explanation, Mayor. I think you did a great job. Again, my name is Kamel Green. I'm the founder and CEO of Poly Platform. I ended up in Utah back in 2015, where I went to BYU and played football and studied political science. My goal was to work in the federal space, and I did. However, it was a little too slow for me. And so I went back to BYU and got my master's in public administration. And that's when, I got experience for, working for Eagle Mountain City, working in Utah County Good Governance Board, and really starting to understand local government more and start to see kind of the tech, what was there, what were the problems. And so that's when I decided to kind of hone into, there's so many different things out there. There's a lot of antiquated technology. There's a need to purchase multiple different technologies, and there's a fight to have a voice within the space. A lot of different entities are using social media. However, you're yelling in an empty room to a certain extent, rather using a website or using social media. And so that's when I decided to essentially grant the access for cities to have their own personalized mobile app that consolidates all those third-party platforms into one space. And so that's essentially Poly Platform. We're working with some cities out in Washington State and Utah in particular, Lehigh City, Blanding City, West Point City, Duchesne, and just growing from there. We're in the process of raising our first round of capital and really just growing. And so that's Poly Platform in a nutshell. Mayor, I think you did a great job at explaining. So with this time, we'd love to answer any questions you all might have.
So I'll just pick up a couple points I neglected to mention. One is it's not social media. Okay, so it doesn't mean that we can't have a place for people to respond, but it's not like Nextdoor where everybody control and tell us what they think of our community. It is, I say, it's just another app on your phone. If we were to adopt this, we would have to do a strong push to the community Again, I don't see why anybody wouldn't want to download it. It's not a huge space user on your phone. You've got 1,000 apps on your phone anyway, full of games and junk you shouldn't have anyhow. So might as well put something on that's useful. You can, just like you can any other app, you can set it for notifications so that you can, it'll ding when you want it to ding, that kind of stuff. So you can control how invasive it is on your phone and in your life. There is, to the best of our knowledge, there is no technology other than old school getting in a car with a loudspeaker and driving through the streets, yelling emergency, everyone to evacuate or whatever. Outside of that, there's nothing there's no way for us to push that out without people actually wanting to actually know about it. So, like any solution, it only works if people are willing to try it. What we saw in it, I thought it was pretty powerful set of solutions. I'm pretty excited about it. I'll let Carol chime in because I know she was on the phone as well.
I thought it sounded extremely interesting. I was very interested in going back to notification of if there is an emergency. And so we could notify people that way. That was my original interest. I think why I was chosen to be on the original committee. And that could happen. There's just so many different applications we could use it for. Notification of events, if we ever go back to being able to have events in town, that we could notify people about that kind of thing. So yes, I was quite impressed with it.
And really just want to piggyback a little bit off of what Carol said as well. The platform is up to you. So you have complete autonomy of the platform. And so when it comes to posting things, you can create a module. If that module is city events, you can create a module for city events. If you wanted a module for COVID-19 information, you can create a module for that. If you wanted a module for meeting minutes or meeting agendas, you can do that. And so the platform really is your own echo chamber to thoroughly communicate with your residents, and not only communicating, residents now have the ability to be a little more digitally engaged as well, via polls and surveys, and also reporting issues as well.
The other thing I would say is, for as hard as we've tried to make our website better, it certainly is better than it was when I first came in as mayor. People still seem to want to use a social media type platform to ask questions about the town instead of looking at a tool for the town. So my thought is, by having an app that is the town, that it might just like you go to your phone to look at the weather now, or sports scores or whatever, by having an app that's Hideout, that people might be willing to pop it up on their phone and say, Hideout wins this, and have it show up there. Because they certainly don't go to the website. Instead, they go on social media and say, does anybody know when the next council meeting is? So my thinking is that maybe we're, some of us are demographically I gotta say this correctly, some of us are demographically of a level of seniority that we're more comfortable using the computer maybe than looking at the phone, but everybody's moving to the phone. So I think, it's probably a great way for us to make that leap and go to where people use to the tool that people have with them all the time. They don't always have their desktop with them. They almost always have a phone.
Hey, Mayor, this is Chris. Sorry I missed the demo. I already reached out to Camille looking for a demo. I do have a few questions. Is it okay if I fire them away?
Fire away.
All right. Hey, Camille.
Yes.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
How long has Poly Platform been in existence?
So it's been in existence for 3 years.
And 3 years. Okay. So how many versions of it have you?
Yeah, so
released?
we're currently on version 3.
Okay.
Yep.
I
Chris
just
has an
like,
IT background. You hadn't noticed, Camille.
well,
I know. I like the version question. You know, V3 most definitely. So you definitely know what you're talking about.
well, no, it's my day job, right? So it's also Ralph's day job, so Ralph might be even harder on you.
I probably will be.
Okay.
So, no.
Ralph, I'll ask the easy
Be
questions.
prepared,
and
Camille.
Follow through.
You know, I'm used to speaking to investors every day, so I'm well prepared.
You know, what's your, support team look like? How is this thing support, how is this application supported?
Yeah, so we currently have 3 full stack developers, 2 front end. It's on the back end of Amazon Web Service. And then as far as, even shifting out of our dev team, our analytics team consists of an analytics director who worked for Saratoga Springs, statistician masters, and then we have a support team underneath him.
Okay, Ralph's going to tell you what he does in his day job soon. Ralph, you
Yeah,
wanna-
by the way,
Okay.
Camille, I work for AWS.
There you
Not
go.
on the not on the technical side, but on their business development
Gotcha.
globally. So
Gotcha.
I do have, I kind of like along the Chris's line. I have to put on my town council hat as opposed to my pure tech hat. Been there, in those early stages of companies. To follow up on Chris, how many active customers do you have? And can you give me a profile of how long? 3 years, you probably haven't had that many. So, give me an idea of what your customer looks like, and have we connected with any references to talk to? Usually those are standard questions that you get for any company, but certainly early stage companies.
No, for sure. So right now, 12 enterprise customers. As far as smaller ones, we have plenty more of that. As far as enterprise, we have 12. With that being, it's 10 cities, 2 bigger nonprofit 501c3s. So that would be venturecapital.org and then Silicon Slopes down in Lehigh. Silicon Slopes down in Lehigh has just over 20,000 members. Venturecapital.org has just over 15,000 members. And then you have Lehigh that's sitting at 74,000 residents, if I'm not mistaken, Blanding, West Point, and then the list goes on, and I can send you some additional information on that. But as far as, capacity, over 10 million people can use the product simultaneously. Hopefully I answered your questions in that regard.
Yeah, so have we talked, I put this back to our side. Typically, you talk to a reference, how do you like it? What's the service? So I know it sounds like you're in those early seed stages, and you're one of our customers at AWS. So I'll try to be nicer now, so to speak.
You're totally fine.
To Chris's point, if someone calls up, do you have, what is it, 5x8 service? Is it round the clock? Or our team here in the town would probably only call you up during the days, but what kind of service, and is that, I assume that's all included with the subscription price?
No, totally. So right now we have 4 customer experience representatives. When each enterprise platform closes with us, Poly Platform, they actually work with you directly. And so you'll have a customer experience representative. In addition to that, you also get marketing and design capabilities as well. And so we design certain content for you to disseminate when it comes to, hey, we have a new mobile platform, et cetera. And so you do have 100% access, not only to our IT support, but you will have a customer experience representative as well.
And is that without paying an additional fee? Is that wrapped into this subscription?
That's all included in the subscription.
A couple of thoughts. One is, sorry, Ralph, just jumping on what you said.
No,
here.
jump in. I got a couple more questions though.
I'll come back to you. Just give me a sec. So one is, because we're going to use this as an emergency communication package, I think the question of, if we push and it doesn't go, how do we get help at 2 o'clock in the morning in a crisis? Is there a hotline?
Yeah, so actually our development, so we have, again, the full stack developers. And so one of them works the graveyard shift. And so you'll always be able to get immediate contact with that person. And so that goes with the IT. In addition to that, the customer representative is essentially around the clock. And so your representative should, that's what they're being paid for. And so when you reach out to them, their job is to answer the call.
The other thing I would mention, guys, is it's a paradigm shift, but this is, and no disrespect at all in this statement, Camille, but this is these apps are essentially because of this technology, these things are essentially throwaway. These are not big, massive, old school systems that require source code and all that kind of junk in case the company goes out of business and all those kinds of things. So I see the risk of the fact that this is a young company I see it as not a risk. I see it as actually a benefit because these guys are thinking about the world on a phone, which is where the world is going. And so I'm excited by that. And the price point entry is quite reasonable. And in 3 years' time, who the heck knows what tools are going to be out there? And in 3 years' time, if these guys aren't keeping up, we'll make a change. But and it's not a huge impact because we haven't spent $74 million or $124 million on an SAP startup, which you can't throw away. So I just keep that in the back of our minds as well. This is a bridge to getting us closer to where we want to be. We certainly want to validate the functionality and the support, but let's also recognize that I think it's a great product at the price point entry that we're looking at, and it is it's an easy move for us. And just as an easy move in, it's also an easy move away if, as I say, they don't keep up, and in 3 years' time, it's obsolete. So keep that in mind.
Hey, Mayor.
Sorry, Ralph.
Sorry, I just want to say, I know you're trying to sell us on this. I'm just gonna tell you,
No, I'm not.
I need to see a demo to see what it actually does, and try to imagine the different scenarios we might have for either eliciting, information from people or pushing information to people, as well as, I have plenty of apps on my phone now that I download and never use, and including Everbridge. So I just want to, make sure that it actually meets the needs that we have. It's not just a shiny object for us to buy because it sounds cool and, it sounds cool.
I trust me, Chris, I'm not trying to buy it because it's a shiny object. Just to be clear, I'm not enamored by a shiny object.
No, it wasn't meant for you. It's just for, it's easy to be wowed. I know that I've often seen things like, wow, this looks cool, and then it just turns out maybe there's not enough substance behind it, or or it's not meeting our needs. So I just want to know, I want to be able to see what this app actually does. So I just want to add that, and then I'll turn it back over to Ralph because I know you have more questions.
Yeah, and my additional questions fall in line with Chris. I guess we're inundated with our own background, so to speak. But I give you a lot of praise for being part of Silicon Slopes and getting your company off the ground. That is really terrific. And so that leans me into you a little bit, so to speak. But it'd be nice to get a demo. And I don't know if you do a proof of concept, so to speak, which is one step after a demo, to see how it integrates with our current set of data. Two, on the data side, are we pushing all the town's data? Because I know we get certainly compliance around data, potentially even being hit by hackers is an issue. We've been hit here. So, what is your data protection scheme? How much data is sitting on your site if we're in a SaaS environment? These are just standard questions that we would get, in any kind of software as a service kind of environment. I'm not trying to pick on you, Camel. And then maybe my last question is more of a competitive question. So if someone said, if a town said, hey, we're using Granicus and they just bought, I think it's Bang the Table, how would you differentiate yourselves from those guys, so to speak? So those are my 3 or 4 questions. If you want to answer them here, or maybe we talk later or something like that.
Yeah, no, I'll answer those questions now, and I'll actually send you some information to support some of my claims as well. So on the latter side, when it comes to Granicus, the biggest difference that differentiates us from anyone out there is we are a mobile platform. So we're a mobile app. And so Granicus is not necessarily a mobile app, it's web-based. And so, even, alluding to some of the comments that the mayor has had, but even our primary and secondary researchers, this is your own echo chamber. And so not only is Granicus moreover a website, and so you're still going to be fighting for a noise. And so you're probably going to get a lot of the proactive individuals already going to the website. This is not something where when you post information, you get a notification or you can go to a one-stop shop. Granicus, you're still going to be going to a web base. And so to me, I think that's completely different. In addition to that, the biggest thing is Granicus is 10 times the amount of Poly platform. And so that will be the second, point to that. Going back into, so hopefully that satisfies those questions on the latter side.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. I kind of figured some of that answer coming from you. But in any case, that's great that you addressed that. And then how about the data integrity, the data, our data, because I wouldn't want any of our data lost to, and thank God you're using AWS. If you're implementing the security controls that we recommend, that would allay my fears.
No, for sure. And so the unique thing is even when you're on the iOS or Google Play, when you work with any government entities, there's certain compliances that you have to go through. And so not only just using a lot of the secured type of features that AWS offers, this is 100% cloud-based. And so as far as the data side, we have additional components that our dev team has put up, but we also have a lot of the AWS features that they offer as well when it comes to the security and data side of things for cybersecurity.
Do you encrypt your each town's data at rest?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, thanks, Kemal.
Yeah, no, thank you. Loved your questions as well. Any other questions from anyone?
Well, since Ralph and Chris would like a demo, if you could throw some dates out, not now, Camille, but just send a note back through Alicia. She'll get something scheduled so they can look at it.
I think I can just schedule, Ralph and I can get together because Kamel has this cool thing you click on and you just pick a date for a demo. So Ralph and I can do that quicker. We don't have to make it. I think we can get it done like really quick.
Awesome.
I look forward to it. I'm really excited about the possibilities here. Obviously, we just have to maintain our own reservations based upon, our responsibilities here.
Totally, 100%.
Now, if Sherry or Bob wants a demo, maybe they can do another demo at a different time because we can't have more than 2 council members on at a time.
The other thing is I have some calls out to some of the constituencies that Camille mentioned to get their input independently on this particular platform. Again, I'm soliciting input from council, but it's an executive decision, not a council. The price of this platform does not require council approval. So, we won't be voting on whether or not, but I do want your input, so.
Well, as I don't have the tech background and probably didn't understand half of your questions, but I do, as a resident of the town, I really like this because in the past, whenever I needed information on the town, I would go to the website, which was easy enough on the computer, but not on the phone. And it was sometimes difficult to find the information I wanted. And this sounds like a really great way to maybe bring the town together, communication wise and input wise, maybe make it easier for people to give their input on issues.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to replace our website. I think this is going to
No,
supplement.
I don't think it'll replace the website, but I think it might make it a lot easier to engage the community.
Agreed. Okay, so I'll leave it to you guys to get something scheduled in the next couple of weeks if possible, so we can make some decisions and get moving if we decide that if it passes the test of being a viable solution. I'd like to say that I mean we've already done quote work on similar systems. Poly Platform is unique based on how as Kamel described it, but when we were researching a year ago looking for solutions, and we know what they cost, we know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and we can do more work because it's a changing environment, but I think this is one of the ones this is the one that I've seen, at least, it looks like the easiest for us to implement, has the biggest bang for the buck. So assuming it's functional and that the feedback from the user community that have it is positive, I would say that we would be comfortable in my perspective giving it a try. So, but we'll let you guys see it and give us some additional feedback.
Chris, I'll coordinate.
All right.
I'd love to see it, and I'll coordinate a call with you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Kamel, for hanging around and being here for us. We will these guys will be in touch with you, and then we'll figure out where we're going next.
Awesome. Thank you for allowing the time. You all have a good night.
Thank you. So I want to do number 4 next, and then we'll do public hearing items, and then we'll do the discussion items. So number 4 is the official zoning map by ordinance. So at a prior meeting, we adopted we thought we adopted the zoning map, but it turns out that the zoning map has to be approved by ordinance, not just by a vote to approve it. So we're basically going back to the same zoning map, which says Exhibit A, but I'm not finding it in here. So Alicia, is the zoning map in the package or is it separate?
It's separate. Do you want me to send it, Polly? I just got your text.
Yeah, can you put it or share it with the mayor so you can just pull it up so you can, so it's just part of the meeting and then you will include it in the packet.
Yeah. It's supposed to be in Appendix A for this.
Sorry.
If we adopt this. I can probably find last month's one unless you've got it in front of you, Alicia, which would be quicker.
Let me look real quick.
And it was to Alicia's good attention to detail that she realized that we need ordinance. So I got so excited about the actual map that we didn't include the ordinance. And just so you know, once it's done, we'll have an official map that we'll keep at Town Hall that you actually sign the actual map that it executed.
I think it's the one from December. I think it's the one from December 8th.
Yes.
I can get
December one.
I'm trying to get the Zoom to.
I think I've got it, Mayor.
Yeah, you do. how you did that, I don't know. Stole my
That
screen.
that will be Exhibit A.
So this is a reminder. Can you scroll down just a little bit so they can see the there you go. So this was in the December meeting. This is what we approved. This is the same map we're approving here, but we're doing it by ordinance. Questions from council?
No questions. It's the same map, so we should just.
Yeah.
Move
So we're
forward.
going to need a motion to adopt an ordinance, I need a motion to approve an ordinance adopting the official zoning map for the town of Hideout as displayed on your screen and discussed in the December 8th, 2021 meeting.
So moved. This is Chris.
I'll second. It's Carol.
Thank you. Bob,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passed. The zoning map is now officially adopted by ordinance. Thank you. Okay. We're jumping back up to section 6, public input. So I'm really tearing up the agenda tonight. So I'll open the floor for public input on any item not listed on the agenda tonight. Again, the process is to raise your hand in the Zoom or *6 on your phone, and Alicia can allow you to get you off of mute. I'm not seeing any responders, so we'll close public input. And we'll move down to the discussion items. And then at the end, we'll circle back and grab the minutes. Okay. So the first one is on noxious weeds. We had a meeting back in October. We talked about this and we said that we would put together a process to communicate to the community what's going to happen with the weed program, the fact that if you don't comply, that the action will be taken on your behalf, and that there will be cost associated with that, etc. The staff, I assigned the staff to put that together into a process for us to review. That has not happened. Staff has been working on a lot of things, and seeing it's the dead of winter, the weeds have kind of slipped behind. So I put this on as a reminder that we are going to put that together. I'm going to look at Jan and Carol Custerly to please put together a one-pager on the communication process we're going to use. We talked about in the meeting in October that we'd start sending out reminders in March on how this is going to work, and that you had to have it done by no later than May and that kind of stuff. So Jan, I'm asking if you have any questions on what we said we were going to do. You can review the minutes of October 14th, because we did talk about it in there. And if you please take the lead to get something ready for the next meeting so that the council can review it and give you feedback prior, in the February meeting, so we can get something issued in March. That would be great.
Sure. Happy to do that.
Thank you. And Alicia, if you put that on the February council meeting for review, that'd be a great reminder for everyone. Thank you. The second one I need help with, I've been in touch with Tony Matisak. Tony is very happy with the Planning Commission. There has been they're one short on the alternates. Jonathan Gunn has agreed to be willing to serve as the alternate on that committee, but because of the terms, and I don't know, Alicia, do we have the list of expiries? I don't know exactly, but we do need to reappoint the planning commissioners, just like we had to get ourselves reappointed or sworn in. And because it's the planning commission, and I do that with the advice and consent of council, I'm looking for the advice and consent of council to reappoint the planning commissioners whose terms expire in this month.
Is that in the form of a motion, Mayor?
No, it doesn't need to be a motion, Ralph. It just need to, it's an appointment by me, but I have to do it with your consent. So I just need you to tell me that you're comfortable with my reappointing the commissioners.
Well, I'll be first up and say yes.
Do all of the commissioners, do all their terms expire this month?
No.
There's supposed to be
So we
stuff. Alicia, you don't have the list of?
Yeah, she does. I can
I
pull it
just
up.
emailed it to the mayor.
Okay, 'cause I think that then if you look at that.
I'll pull it up. There's three commissioners that are expire this term: Bruce Wolfel, Glennis Tahansky, and Rachel Cooper as the alternate, first alternate, expire in January. So the other three expire in 2024, 2 years from now. But because some of these came in, because of rotation and movement of people on the team, some of them came in not en masse. So I would prefer that we, and I'll share this, that we would, I gotta get this mail to open, sorry. That I would prefer that we would get your approval to reappoint all of them, even though not all of their terms expire this January. So just give me a second and I'll get this on the screen for you. I'm sorry. Trying to do that in a way that you don't get to read all of my personnel reviews. That's not going to work.
Would it be easier if I pulled it up?
I'm just trying to hide my other mail and stuff so people aren't seeing everything. So just give me a second. I think I got it now.
Okay.
I think I got it now. Here we go. I think you're seeing it now. That's the list. So we want to do two things. I want your approval to reappoint these folks, and if you'd like your consent to add Jonathan Gunn as the second alternate.
Oh, I definitely support that. They're all great people. We want to have them continue on and join.
And just so you know, the terms are 4 years.
Well, the three highlighted are 4 years going forward. The three not highlighted are 2 years,
Correct.
for 2 further years before they.
But you're right. The ones that you're reappointing this year are for a term that will go, their seats will go till 2026.
Right.
That seems so far in the future. But yes.
You're gonna need a new mayor by then too. So I heard Chris is supportive. Ralph, I heard you say you were supportive.
I'm a
Yes.
supporter.
I'll support as well.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Sherry.
I just
Bob,
want to
you
say,
okay?
I'm glad, I am so delighted we have so much stability in the planning commission now. I just think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, the other thing I'm working on, I've asked Alicia to work on, is to try and find a time where we can have a working meeting with the planning commission and the council to reconnect and make sure that that they understand our expectations and we understand what they need from us, in case we're not providing that, because I purposefully try and not go to planning commission meetings, because oftentimes if I'm at a planning commission meeting, people start asking me, can I do this, and try and work their way around the planning commission. And I don't want that to happen. I want the process to work. So I purposefully don't go on, so I don't get cornered into forcing a direction. Okay, well, thank you for your support for that. I will talk to Tony and let him know that we are highly supportive of the work they're doing, and that if they're willing to serve, they are reappointed, and that we'll be meeting with them shortly to as I say, have a working meeting. Okay. Item 5 here is the council pay. So I sent some information out. We keep coming back to this. Jan did some work, and the work that she did identified Bob's going to have to jump off because he's flying in the morning, so he's going to jump off. Sorry to come back to this. So she identified some data that looked at council pay as a percentage of general fund, which is different than council pay versus budget, because you can't, B and C road funds, enterprise funds are not, are different. And so, we wouldn't be paying council members out of enterprise funds. So you'd have to do a comparison of council pay versus general fund, because that's where it comes from. And that's where the data that I sent out came from. So Ralph, I know you had some questions, so. And I'm going to pull that up while you're.
Yeah, so I mean, because this has been going, around, so to speak. So I actually did, in my calculations, if, and there were some assumptions in there about the way the original spreadsheet. Jan, are you on? It said compensation per month in the spreadsheet. So I used those figures as a monthly number and then compared them to 2 budgets that were in comparable sizes to us, about populations of around 2,000. And and even before that, across the board, it looked like somewhere around 2% of some towns' budgets, certainly in our size, were dedicated to the council and planning commission and mayor. So I'm not quite sure show me where I'm wrong or where you're right, so to speak, because that's the general gist of how I did my calculations, and took two towns, one being Millville City and the other one Naples City, both again with populations of around 2,000, and then calculated what the total council, mayor, and planning commission received. Came out with a rough calculation, one being 2.15% of the budget and one being 2.3, which told me that, that we're in around that 2% range. So if that's wrong, we'd like to know, let's discuss it or go back through the calculations again.
So
Trying to pull up
I can talk about the data that I gathered and the method. It wasn't, I didn't dial down on individual, like planning commission and town council and mayor, which I know often they have different pay scales and different agreements. I simply send a blast out about town council pay. Did you pay them? If so, how much? And then for the people who responded, I followed up and asked them if they could tell me what their general fund balance was. So, this it wasn't an in-depth study. What benefits, it's a little bit loose. I kind of wanted to get a general feel. And, there was a kind of a mode of when towns got to the 20 million, 30 million type revenues in their general fund, they would start putting town council people into the URS, the retirement system, and their benefits actually, comported with that minimum pay. And there was an obvious, as I say, a mode was to 20, 30 million, 40 million. That type of municipality really made a connection with salary at a certain level. So other than that, a lot of just, volunteer at the lower revenue amounts for the city, but more, it went all over the place, really. We don't have a certain percentage that is allocated. And, you look at our town and we have so many difficult issues, and we're not really a very good comparison to anyone. We're a booming town with several issues. So it makes it also very difficult to compare.
Yeah, agree on all those points, Jan. And the two that I picked out were closer to our town. And it's hard to compare us against Park City, that the scale and the dimension and the revenue or even Heber. It's difficult to compare at that level. So, but I did see that where there is budgets in that call it 1.5 to $2.5 million range. The two examples that we pulled up were running about roughly 2%. So anyway, I was thinking that if we did do something, we could start at half of that or even less than that, just to begin to provide some incentive for our contributors, so to speak. So not where it's going to certainly get you a salary, but at least to show that we're competitive, or at least maybe initially starting out compared to some of the other towns. But I'm okay. I've never taken anything off of the monthly compensation since either at the planning board level or the town council, at least at this point. But I do think maybe other people might have a different view on that, and just like other towns that use that as some incentive to be fair to people who can't take their time off or, with, because they're doing other things. So anyway.
So Ralph, this is the spreadsheet that I sent out to you guys for review. Using Jan's numbers, all I did was convert these because I can't do math on the words. I just put the dollars into dollars. This is the council pay that she was looking at, and this is the percent of that budget. So I don't know where you got the 1 or 2% from, or I'm doing my math wrong. One of the two.
Yeah, so right up in the second row, Millville City, 1.15 million. The 3,600, according to what I saw in the other spreadsheet that we had, that the mayor receives something like $700 a month. You multiply that by 12, you get 8,400. So that trumps that number right there. The council members receive $300 a month times 12. That's 3,600. If you multiply that times 5 council members, that comes out to 18,000. I just added those two numbers, come up with 26,400. If you divide that into 1 million.
All right. Well, that's
Okay.
a really good point, Ralph. I just assumed that this was that the numbers that Jan gave me were the combined pay for all those. That wasn't an individual contributor.
Now, this
Yeah,
is
so
Jan,
I
can you
was looking
clarify?
at, and this is where Jan comes into play here. I was looking at the original spreadsheet you sent out, and it had, it breaks down council pay, mayor pay by month. So if that's not accurate, then, my calculations wouldn't necessarily be accurate, but I was using the breakdown spreadsheet as how I built up my numbers.
the first spreadsheet was much more detailed. This was simply, do you pay your council members? If so, how much? And it was, an attempt to just kind of get a ballpark of where we should be or thinking about it compared with other cities. And yeah, to the extent the first spreadsheet has particulars on benefits or car allowance or breaks it down by mayor and planning commission, this second study isn't it. It was basically just as a percentage of revenues. It was sort of a ballpark.
But I stand corrected then, Jan, because if the council pay is $3,600 per council member,
Yes.
and not total, then this is wrong. So I apologize, but I assumed it was the total pay for the entire council on this data.
In the case of Millville, Phil, the mayor gets $700 a month. So you have to add those two together over at the yearly level, and then compare that to the yearly budget to get a percentage of what they're paying out to their council members, commissioners, and mayor. And I did the same thing with Naples, again, with a population of 2,100, and came out with, if you add all their numbers up, it was about $52,656. Their budget is about 2.4 million. So again, it comes out, if you do the math, it comes out around 2% of the budget.
Thank you,
And
Ralph,
I'm not advocating for anything here. I'm just saying those are the numbers.
So this is, so my math is wrong in that this is at an individual basis and not at a combined council basis. I didn't understand that. When I read this title as annual council pay, I assumed it was the entire council, not per person. So that's what threw me off. So, all right. So the point is that at 2% of budget, that's a significant delta for us versus where we are today. It's certainly something for the budget committee. I think what we can do is ask the budget committee to put together a budget with and without to see what it would do to our tax increment, just so you guys could have something to look at. The addition of roughly 2% of general fund budget associated with paying council or whatever Personally, if I were going to do anything, I would personally prefer to give more money to staff than to hold the staff. Reduce turnover, but we'll look at it and come back to you when we have the budget reviews.
I'd also agree
Thanks,
with
Matt.
where you're going, Mayor, so, but.
Thanks for your
you know,
analysis.
just-
Ralph.
Yeah, just as long as we know where numbers are, so to speak.
Yeah, no, my bad. I made an assumption when I got this spreadsheet that this was total, and that's why I did my math this way. But good on you to point out the discrepancy. Thank you. So we'll let the budget committee work on what the implications are to our tax increment. Should we try to find 2% more of general funds to pay people? Okay. Any other comments on? No, thanks, Ralph. That was really a good pickup on your part. I didn't go back and compare versus the prior version. I just assumed this was the right number. So,
A
Yeah, no-
question, when is the budget committee getting together again? And when are they gonna,
they're starting next month.
We have a meeting scheduled for the 24th of this month, but not everyone can make it. So we've been talking about, do we meet on Tuesday? We're still trying to get everybody back together after the holidays. So of course, this Monday is a holiday. So we're on the schedule for the 24th, but we need to adjust that. And we meet on Mondays, or have in the past.
And it's it's actually a little bit of a crossover between the Economic Development Committee and the Budget Committee, right, Jan?
Right.
the
Okay.
reason I asked, we've been talking about this for a long time. I'd like us to just make a decision one way or another. And especially if, before we would come up with that truth and taxation deadline, where we would have to, we need to figure this out. So as well as, anything else that might be impacting our, need or decision to have to, invoke that process.
We're well aware of the truth and taxation deadline, and they're working hard on pulling that together. But this is an add-on to that. It's not a significant piece of work to add 2% once we have the budget figured out. So we'll
Okay,
have
awesome.
an extra column for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need to review minutes so we can move on. I think that's pretty much everything else on the agenda for tonight. I want to thank in advance. I want to thank Alicia for an amazing job. I mean, some of these minutes are as good as listening to the tape, I have to say. So there's 6 sets of minutes. I don't know if, we'll just try and go, there's so many, we'll just try and go through them one at a time. So the first one is June 10th, 2021 for review. I personally reviewed it. I didn't find anything myself in there. I read through it and didn't, there may be a missed comma or something, but in general, I didn't find anything in that one. So I'm comfortable with them, but I don't know where let's go through and see if anybody has comments on June 10th.
I also read the minutes. They look fantastic, but it did remind me of some things we need to follow up on.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks.
A
Karen.
lot of things
Thanks.
to follow up.
I made notes on that too, Carol and Chris. There's a lot of things that
right.
I thought I had on our list that I don't, that we have, that I've added back in to follow up.
Is there any way that maybe as Alicia goes through the minutes, that when we, when somebody volunteers that, oh yes, we need to talk about this, or I'm going to assign it to so-and-so, is there any way that we can have like an action that it's an action item, and then that the council gets some kind of information back that it was followed up on? I mean, is that possible? Because there were just so many things that we talked about that, like are kind of out there in la la land that I don't know what's ever happened to them.
Well, I mean, I've got a list going that I keep reminding staff we're due on. That's why some of the things are on here, like weeds, for example, are coming back. There is a RFP out for dark skies that is due back this month, and we'll need to get that back on the agenda, for example. There's an RFP out for financial analysis coming back this month. And so I've got those on the list. We can put that list out for you. That's no problem. We can share the list. I think that's easy enough to do since I keep sending it out to the team. So I can send it out to you guys just as easily, let you know that we haven't forgotten them. And I'll do that. So Carol, that's a great thought, and I'll make sure that gets out there.
Okay, and I also have another comment on these minutes. It is, I hate to be picky, but it didn't make sense to me. It's on page 6, line 12. And these are the minutes of June 10th. And it discusses an intersection, and it says intersection of State Road 248. That to me, an intersection should have 2 roads, right?
Yes, it should say intersection of State Road 248 and Richardson Flat Road, or Black Rock, or Browns Canyon Road. Yeah, good pickup. I just mine since I knew what it was, I didn't actually pick up that it's missing. But good point.
Okay.
So Alicia, it is page 6 of 15 and line 12. There's a grocery store was proposed at the intersection of State Road 248 and Richardson Flat Road. Needs to be added.
Got it.
Good pickup, Carol.
Yep.
Picky.
No, that's excellent. I
Hey,
appreciate
quick comment on this one as well, on this. And first of all, Alicia, I mean, your documentation on these is phenomenal. So that's the first piece. And I was thinking the same thing, like I found in one of the sentences, we wanted to add a speaker to the town vehicle in the minutes of 6:10. Can you highlight those in yellow as you're typing those up? If you're just reading them, that would be, and then we could just transfer those to the action list, because same comment. There were so many good things to pick up on from past history, but I just wanted to say you did a phenomenal job. Very impressive.
Thank you. I can't take all the credit for the June minutes, though. These 2 sets of June minutes, I did have help on those. So I can't take credit for those ones. But thank you. The rest
That's why they're so good. It wasn't
hey.
No, you do just an incredible job with the details. I mean,
Thank
I
you.
could never do that. So.
Yeah, we can do that. And guys, I'll tell you what else you can do. When you read the minutes, read them with a highlighter.
Yeah.
And then you can also mark the action items. So when you look at the action list and there's something missing, you can help me make sure we have it all. It goes both ways.
Perfect. Okay.
I'm not gonna let you get off that easy. Any other comments on the June 10th meeting? Okay. Okay, let's move on to, let's move on. We can adopt them all at once that way. I'm just going to move on to the next set and we'll adopt them all as with the comments that we've taken tonight. So we're doing 6 different votes here. So June 24th. That was a reminder of quite a detailed discussion we had about getting the road widths where we wanted them. But
There were 2 follow-ups there that I saw. Interestingly enough, the pole master plan. It sounds like a project within and of itself, and written risk policies.
Which page was
I'm
that?
sorry.
Yeah.
Say that again, Ralph. I didn't hear the first one.
There was something we talked about as we were talking about distribution and transmission line poles, and we were going to come up with a pole master plan in page 11, and then on page.
Oh yeah, we actually had a meeting on that this week, so I can share that with you.
Cool. And then there was one on page 14, some written risk policies. I think that pertain more to the financial aspects of things.
Yeah, that's something that Jan's working on with the team, I know. We'll get an update on that. But yeah, we have a really interesting potential opportunity to do some work with the power poles.
Well, good. I think the council in general were very supportive, maybe insistent that any power lines that can be buried are buried. We don't want power lines overhead.
Agreed.
Yep.
And we can't bury them, but we had a great meeting with Rocky Mountain Power about potentially moving a lot of the poles up to 248.
Okay, good. They're already poles there.
No, they're not. There are poles there, but not poles for these kinds of lines. But
Okay.
But yeah, it's looking like it might be feasible to get some of those transmission lines out of the way.
Wow.
It's kind of exciting.
That would be
Awesome.
Yeah.
that would be totally awesome and highly newsworthy.
Yep. So what, besides the action items, what about the minutes? That's really what we're
The
talking
minutes,
about.
the minutes
here
are
is-
fine. The minutes
Yeah.
are great.
Okay. Any Carol Hazelton items on the minutes?
I actually do have one, but I forgot to write the page number down. But it was when John Leone was talking about something. You referenced him. And I don't know, you probably don't want to go back to the minutes. Maybe I can just let Alicia know. I think he had made a comment about his main concern was, and I felt that the word "if" should have been inserted there because it read very strangely.
Okay. All right, that's page 9 of 18.
It was line 35.
Line 35 on page 9 of 18.
Right, and
24th.
he had said his main concern was, and then it said something, and I said maybe you should put the word "if" after that,
Okay.
after the word "was."
No problem.
Okay.
Not seeing that on line 35.
It might have gone down to line 36. It was kind of between line 35 and line 36.
So I have the first word of line 35 is was, and
Yep.
you just want if. So
Yeah.
so it would read, his main concern was if the roads were durable and would last. Is
Right,
that correct?
Got it. Got it. Okay.
right.
Okay,
Do we, is it appropriate to talk about the content of the minutes? At this
only
point?
if the content is not reflective of what happened. We can talk about what needs to be done separately from approving the minutes. When
Okay.
we're doing it at the same, it's fine.
was
I mean, you
this-
can bring up, if there's something else you want to add to the action list that I've missed, and
Right, yeah, it was just about the secondary access road. And I don't know, is the secondary access road, is it actually in?
Yep,
I thought before it snowed, it was in, that,
it's blocked, but it's in.
okay, so then it's not appropriate that it be plowed or cleared.
It is being plowed. It's just that we're not letting traffic flow through there regularly because it's not an accepted road and they're doing work on it. But in case of emergency, you could get through there.
Okay,
I mean, there's just barricades there. I mean, it's not like it's a major hurdle. If that was the only way out, we could get out. So,
okay,
but the gas company was in this week putting in gas lines along that road. So, we're not letting traffic go through there, but the road is in and paved and generally passable.
okay.
And I know it's plowed because Tim plowed it.
Oh, okay. I must not, I'm not looking at the right area then. Okay.
Yeah, well, I can't take credit for it. My guys plowed it, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay.
You had me fooled there, Tim. I thought it was you. I was giving you kudos. Okay.
Well, I can't, thank you, but I can't take credit.
The next minutes are July 8th.
It looked fine to me.
I didn't have anything on the minutes, great minutes again. I had a couple of there were a number of actions, but two that I had questions on, page 4, line 13, speed signs in the Wrestler area and the Soaring Hawk. Were they done or did we look into that?
Each sign is in Soaring Hawk. We made a decision to put the other one on the other one that we had. We had made a decision to install that on Shoreline Drive near the intersection of Recreation Road. That we felt we were having more trouble there than we were in Rustler. And so we chose to put that one there. But there is one in Soaring Hawk. And
then-
Tim is working on with Jan to see if we've got the budget for another 2.
Cool. And then there was one for Polly on page 4, line 21, some update that we were looking for on citations. So those were the 2 outstanding ones that I figured I'd ask where we're at on. Do you remember, Polly?
Cameron has been working with the town on the process of issuing citations. I know he met with Tim and maybe Jan as well and some others about the process and the way to go about issuing citations. I think he was going to also do a follow-up with them. But I will find out and maybe we can just have an update to the council on that and how that program has been working.
So a quick update that we have started issuing citations. We're working with Wasatch County on all the details for that. They have everything they need to start collecting, except a number from the police department. We need an NCIC number, which we had, but had been mothballed due to lack of use, but that's being resurrected. Tim is working on that. Expect that to be resolved in the next week or so. And at that point, we're issuing citations, but Wasatch County needs some additional info to be able to actually collect on them. And so that's the last thing we need. And then we've been working with a very nice woman in the collections department that's doing a great job. And we'll actually be in a position to start, putting, either collecting or putting them into the process that puts, liens on property, or, if they don't get paid. So it'll fall into the county's process for what happens if you're delinquent on payment. So they take over from there and, assign it to your tax bill, et cetera.
Thanks.
So it's moving. The next meeting is August 12th. It was a relatively short meeting in a relative basis, which we primarily changed the deadlines on the AMDA.
The only follow-up I saw in there was probably more in Jan and my spot, and that is to get a PID policy, in front of the town council at some point soon, if we're gonna use PID.
And we did.
Did we get a PID policy that the council has looked at? Sorry.
We had a presentation. We didn't get an actual policy.
We didn't get the policy, yeah. Randy's supposed to give us a blueprint or template for that. So we would have to adopt something at that point for developers to use the PID mechanism. Is that the right process, Jan, on that one?
I think we lost
She's
Jan.
still on.
Yeah, we may have lost
lost
it, but I think that's the process.
I also believe, Polly, we made a decision on ALJ, right? I believe we did. You're on mute, Polly.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, we met quite a while ago on choosing an ALJ, and Jan was going to follow through with that. So I sat on the committee, and we had, I can't remember who it was, but the person we chose was really well qualified. So
Yeah, ALJ has been selected and is available for our use if we have a case that requires an ALJ. That's my understanding.
yeah. I think that was back in October.
So that's been done.
I had a question, again, an action item on the emergency operations plan. One question.
I continue to chase them, Carol. I've been in contact with Jeremy Hales, who's the head of the department in Wasatch. And we did
Right.
adopt it. He knows we've adopted. I've been pushing him to tell us what happens next. He continues to tell me that he's working to get his committee together and he's introducing them to the new laws, and that he will get back in touch with me. I write him pretty much monthly and ask him for an update, and I'll keep doing it. So we agreed that I was going to be invited to a meeting, or Tim and I were going to be invited to a meeting, and that has not happened. But I keep chasing them.
Okay. And so there's been no training or anything for people that are
No,
involved?
there's been nothing yet, because I'm trying to find out from them what they want us, where do we escalate to them, what's required to do that, all that kind of stuff. And he's scrambling now that the primary season for this stuff is over. He should be available to do this work, and I continue to bug him. But I don't know, Polly, if there's anything else we can do besides keep asking them to get moving on this.
Yeah. I think we just have to keep hounding him. but that's not very reassuring in terms of providing services to us.
Agreed.
Cameron unfortunately has been out for the last 2 weeks due to illness, and then his father passed away, his father's illness, and then his father passed
Right.
away. So I'll check in with him and see if he might have some other strategies. He might be able to come up with some ideas how to push this forward with the county.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, the next meeting is September 9th. I was not at that meeting, so I read the minutes and they seemed logical, but that was the one I was away for and Chris was in charge. So I'll have to defer to you guys on.
Those
on
minutes look
meetings.
good to me.
Yeah, same here. And I did have 3 questions about some follow-ups though. One on page 3, line 34, on our unacceptable contaminant levels for the dirt moving between shoreline and where they were moving it and bringing it in for fill. And do we ever look at the results? Did we get any results?
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's good.
So the dirt is inspected. We do get tests on that. The engineering team looks at those and make sure that they are within the legal limits.
Terrific. And then on the same page, on line 40 and 41, it states that Mr. Dixon stated if complaints were received by email, he tracked those emails and provide data to council. Are we doing any tracking? Could we use this poly platform system to do some of that? So that could be useful as well, because I know there's some software out there that will track our activities and follow-ups here.
Ralph, that's a really, really good thought. I mean, we look at those emails and, communicate with people who communicate with us and, help them get an understanding of what's going on, but we're not putting that into a data set. How many did we get this month? What are the main categories? That kind of stuff. So I think that's a good upgrade. I don't know if we can use Poly Platform for that or not, but I'll talk with Tim offline and see if we can't, and Alicia, and see if we can't collect those and give you, stats. We got 17 emails, 14 phone calls, and whatever from residents, and or landowners or whomever this month, and they fall into these categories.
Yeah, we get our fair share of complaints or comments, strong comments back. So I think a good tracking system and then closed complaints would be probably useful for all of us, and even to publicize that, I mean, just like any good business does, so to speak. They're pretty open about those things. So anyway, food for thought. I think we can get better at that.
Any good business has significantly more staffing than we have too. So
yeah, I know. Well, if we could automate this, again, trying to,
we'll work on it. We'll work on it. Yeah, that's a good question for Camille. We can look at that.
Yeah,
See if
and
we
then
push everything through that platform. That's a good idea.
Nothing wrong with following up. I think that just shows what we should be doing as a town. And then page 4, line 6, there was a traffic control plan. I don't know if there was any follow-up on that.
Yeah, we adopted it in the winter ordinance.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about there. Terrific.
Yeah.
That was all I
We
saw.
still have to do more work on a non-winter situation. But
Well, was that traffic control plan also focused on our construction vehicles and those kinds of things? I can't remember exactly. Anyway.
Yeah. So the winter ordinance kind of did some of that work, but Tim still has work to do on a year-round plan.
Okay. That's all I saw.
Right, Tim?
Yes, sir. I'm working on it daily.
All right, so no comments on the content on that one. Okay, so last one is October 14th.
Nothing my end.
They look good to me.
Oh, looks good.
Again, thanks to Alicia and her team of support folks that are helping her with these. Fantastic job. If so we've got minutes of June 10th with a slight modification and the minutes of June 24th with a slight modification. I think those are the two, right, Alicia?
Mhm. Yep.
So I'd be looking for a motion to adopt all the minutes, June 10, June 24, July 8th, August 12th, September 9th, October 14th, as presented, with the addition of the modifications discussed tonight.
Also moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Carol. So, Chris,
Yes.
Sherry, you weren't here for all of those, so
I was not here for any of those, but I feel like I was after reading them all. They were so detailed. So I have to abstain.
so I think
Next
you'll
time,
abstain.
Sherry.
The next one I was there, yes.
Yep.
Carol,
Yes.
yes, and Ralph.
Yes.
Okay, so motion carries as 3 council members supported the adoption of the minutes. So congratulations, Alicia, you got a whole bunch off your books.
All right. Next time we'll get all the way done, all the way caught up.
Get all the way to 2022.
Yep.
That's the
Well,
goal.
If you do 6 again, Alicia, we might have to have a separate meeting.
I think we'll be okay.
So Polly and I discussed the possibility of an executive session. We didn't feel it was necessary. She's going to send an update. Is that correct, Polly?
That's correct. It's half written and then I had some other things come up. So I'll get it to you by tomorrow.
I'd like to tell you that there's great and fabulous progress, but unfortunately, the rule of law moves slowly. And so lots of noise is, continues to be made, but not much progress, I'm sorry to say. So if any of you wants, after Polly sends that out, if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to her for additional information. In the meantime, I'd like to suggest that that we consider the opportunity to close the meeting and adjourn. If you'd like to do that.
Works for me.
So is that a motion to adjourn?
I'll move, yes, absolutely.
Anybody else want to go home?
We're home already, but yeah.
All right, so anybody else would like to close the meeting? I need a second.
I'll second.
Is that Sherry?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you all very much for your again, great questions and great engagement. And we'll, there's a request out to have a special meeting on the 27th. Alicia really needs to hear back from you if you're available for just a one topic meeting on the 27th. If we can do that, that would help keep the project moving. So let her know. She needs to know by the end of tomorrow at the latest, because she's got to get it noticed, because it would be a public hearing.
I think I did hear back from everybody except for Bob that we could do it. So
Okay, well, we just need a quorum, so that'll work. So
thanks.
you let us know tomorrow, Alicia, if that's gonna happen, so we can all get it on the calendar.
I will say yes.
Okay, so on the calendar for the 27th, 6 PM, a one topic meeting. No minutes. The only public input we'll take is related to the public hearing. So in and out, hopefully,
Sure.
regarding allowing the next phase of claim to move forward.
Terrific.
Okay,
Sounds
all
good.
right. Well, thank you all very much. The meeting is adjourned and we will talk in a couple weeks, if not before.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Congratulations on your next term starting. And thank you
Yes,
for.
and thanks again for being here and doing it. We really appreciate it.
Okay.